Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to see all of you here tonight. It's been 9 years since the History Makers gathered last in Washington, D.C. We were here to celebrate the life and legacy of former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder in an evening with Eric Holder. And we are thrilled to be back in the nation's capital. Last year, the History Makers Board of Directors gifted to the D.C. Public Library a subscription to the History Makers Digital Archive. We felt that it was critical that the District of Columbia, a city steeped in Black history, have this archive as part of its library. Developed by Carnegie Mellon University, the History Makers Digital Archive provides amazing and easy access to over 11,000 hours of programming. This programming is first-person interviews with African Americans from across the country. Thanks to the team at Carnegie Mellon and Juliana Richardson, the founder of the History Makers, and the amazing team that Juliana has created, this archive exemplifies what happens when tech meets culture and history. The History Makers Digital Archive of over 4,000 first-person interviews with African Americans, many of whom are here today, is a wonderful resource. We are so excited that the residents and students of the District of Columbia now have access to this priceless collection. The DC Public Library System joins public libraries across the United States, including Chicago, Dallas, Alaska, Dayton, Las Vegas, New York, Philadelphia, Detroit, Houston, Boston, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Shreveport. This collection is needed now more than ever before. It is especially significant that we're here today in the newly renovated Martin Luther King Library, a state-of-the-art cultural and learning hub. We are honored to have with us Tony Williams, chair of the board of the DC Public Library. I also want to acknowledge Stephen Newman, my former law partner, who is a senior vice president and global head of government affairs for American Airlines. American Airlines' commitment to the History Makers is unparalleled. For 25 years, they have flown our interview crews around the country. Our collection would not be possible without American Airlines. It is because of this deep and longstanding support that we've been able to create the nation's largest African American video oral history archive. Steve, will you join me on the stage?
See, she's always standing up for me. That's what old law partners do for each other. Thank you, Tony. Good evening. As Tony mentioned, my name's Steve Newman. I'm a senior vice president and head of global government affairs at American Airlines. And on behalf of the airline, we are honored to be here for such an important moment for the History Makers, and really for the entire community here in Washington, D.C. I live here in Washington, and I'm so excited that our community is going to benefit from having these extraordinary archives in our libraries. This launch was made possible because of so many hardworking leaders at the History Makers and across the city. And a special thank you to Juliana Richardson for her tireless work to bring this to fruition. Thank you. On behalf of the more than 138,000 employees at American Airlines, we are proud to support the History Makers, and we have been proud to support them, as Tony said, from day one. And we look forward to continuing this partnership for years to come. Now, next year marks our 100th anniversary as a company and as an airline. And like the History Makers, we believe in preserving the powerful stories of those who've come before us. Stories like that of Captain David Harris, a trailblazer in aviation who became the first Black commercial airline pilot when we hired him at American Airlines in 1964. Then there's the story of a history maker, Jim Tillman, our company's third African-American commercial pilot and the country's fifth. He spent 29 years with American Airlines, earned the Captain's Chair Award, and in fact, the FAA even named an aviator's navigation point after him. And then there's Monty Ford, the former Chief Information Officer for American Airlines. He was instrumental in integrating American Airlines and TWA's systems when those two companies merged in a matter of months. And in his interview with the History Makers, he said that of all the places he worked, quote, American Airlines had the single largest collection of really smart people. Now, it's very important that I point out that Mr. Ford had left the company before I started. So, these are just a few examples of the courage and contributions of African Americans whose legacy continues to inspire and empower us today. The History Makers' work has ensured and continues to ensure that these stories and so many others are not lost. These men and women opened doors, and they inspired countless people to pursue their dreams. We see this every day at American Airlines. When you work hard and you're focused on safety and success, the sky's the limit at American Airlines. We're focused on delivering for our customers and for our team members. Our mission is to care for people on life's journey. And in order to do that, in order to care for people on life's journey, we have to hire the very best people, the best pilots, the best technology specialists, and so on. And there's no way that we can get the very best if we're not looking in every corner of the country. So regardless of where you grew up, regardless of what you look like, regardless of how much money your parents made, you can have a great career at American Airlines. But in order to make sure that we can recruit the very best people, we have to be intentional. And that's why we partner with various organizations to create awareness and access to careers in aviation for those who might not otherwise know that those careers are possible. One of my favorite examples of this is our partnership with Black Enterprise for its Smart Hackathon. For 8 years, we've been sponsors of this annual event, which brings hundreds of HBCU students pursuing IT careers together for a 24-hour hackathon. This November, for the second year in a row, it's going to take place in Charlotte, North Carolina, our second biggest hub. Over the years, we've hired more than 50 students through this program, and that number is only going to grow as we continue to do this year in and year out. But we know that there is still work to be done. That's why, in recent years, American has sponsored and partnered with the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals and the Luke Weathers Flight Academy. We've provided $1.5 million for contributions that provide grants and scholarships to recruit and train pilots, pilots that might not otherwise know that they could have a career in an airline. The bottom line is that it all comes back to opening doors. We know that our support plays a small role in allowing the History Makers to fly around the country and collect untold stories of so many African American leaders. And we also know that the leaders of today and tomorrow are inspired by these stories. With that, I want to congratulate Juliana and the History Makers on this launch, and I want to say thank you for preserving these incredible and inspiring stories for another generation.
All right, well, those are two tough acts to follow, but good evening, everyone. My name's Tony Williams. I am the board chair of DC Public Library, so it is my honor to actually welcome you all here to our building, to the Martin Luther King Memorial Junior Library. It's an incredible facility. Hopefully for those of you in DC, this is not your first time visiting. We would like to have you come back if it is. And let me start by saying, tonight is really a full circle moment for me. I'm seeing faces in the room, faces that I've known since childhood. When Juliana and I were talking the other day about this event, I remembered the first time that I encountered her with my father, and I was maybe 8, 9, 10 years old. It was, and so to be able to circle back at that moment and to be able to be invited back here, I've done something right, or at least my parents have. So let me just start really by thanking Juliana for documenting this history, for bringing us together, and for recording these stories. You see, appropriate that we're here tonight because Dr. King understood something deeply. He understood that stories have power and that our experiences, that when they're documented, when they're shared, that they can become the foundation from which we can build, from which we can excel. And it's, as a parent, and I'm expecting my third kid here any moment, it's something that I think a lot about, those foundations and how do we build for the future. And that notion of Black excellence, of Black genius is so critical. Too often we focus only on the struggle and not on how we have achieved and how we continue to achieve. But that is what the History Makers is about. It is those stories of achievement and those stories of success. And it's so vital that we tell those stories because when we focus on them, when we create that Black community, those Black mentors, those Black leaders, what we really are doing is we are transforming. It's that power, and that transformative power, that ability to educate is why I got involved in the library in the first place. It's why I've dedicated my life to public service and to politics. And I think it's why we all here know the critical importance of that work. So with that, I want to thank Juliana again. I want to thank you all. And I want to thank everyone who has contributed a story here because your stories offer windows, they offer doors, they offer pathways to that next generation, to my children, to me, as we all see getting to stand here tonight. And so thank you again. With that, let me turn it over and welcome the one and only Juliana Richardson.
He was a kid. That's what we were talking about the other day. He's just about to, his wife is just about to birth their third child. So it's really a pleasure to be here. We have a lot to do together. And I want to say that, as Tony said, we haven't been here for 9 years. And I was thinking that that was an awfully long time because outside of Chicago, the largest group that we've interviewed is here in the DC area. So why are we here? I spoke about this recently in Martha's Vineyard. We have a lot at stake. Like each of you believes deeply in the power of stories, the sanctity of knowledge, and the critical importance of documenting who we are as well as who we can become. We're being tested as a nation, oh my God. And we are being tested as a people, and that's double, oh my God. We have book bans, anti-CRT laws, attacks on colleges, universities, public libraries, museum, monuments, the humanities. I was supposed to meet with Carla Hayden the day after she was really horribly fired. It was an insult to me as a Black woman, the way it was done. There's the attack on the Smithsonian, the Kennedy Center. Actually, the whole nation is watching all the things that are happening here in the DC area. We have a political climate that would rather silence difficult truths than confront them. We're watching in real time an orchestrated attempt to dismantle the cultural infrastructure of this nation, and with it, our stories. Can our history makers, we have a room of you, can you please stand? Can you please all stand? Thank you. Now, you know this collection, and I have to think, this collection is really a partnership. We bring our crews, we interview you, you take the time to tell your stories. And, you know, Bill Whitaker and Mark Lieberman and Cassidy McDonald did like an amazing, fabulous job. But I'm here with a mission tonight because we don't know what the 21st century is or will be. We're in the first quarter. It's not looking positive, except the nation did elect its first Black president. But I remember Howard Dodson, when we were at the Library of Congress in our celebration, he had reminded us that in the 19th century, Black people, no matter where they were all over the world, were either in some formerly indentured or enslaved state, or they were marginalized, except for places like Haiti, Liberia, and Cote d'Ivoire. But we don't know, so that really, really means that the 20th century, which Howard talks about as the Black man's century, that 20th century is absolutely critical that we preserve. It will be the only record that we have. We're the only major attempt aside the WPA slave narratives. There's no attempt beyond that in a major way. That added with, I also want to recognize the Johnson Publishing Collection, because God bless John Johnson. 4 million images are now being digitized, 4 million images. You have to thank him for it. So this digital archive, and Tony, stand up, because the fact that you stepped forward to gift this to the Library of, to the DC Public Library is important. But we need usage, and as she referenced, we are at the intersection of tech, meeting culture, so let's just take a look. What? I'm having trouble. What? Can I have help again, please? I did. Oh, okay. It's not working. Darn it. It's not working. You know, why don't we, that's okay. Let's, okay. I want to say that Carnegie Mellon, as Tony mentioned, created the Digital Archive. They've worked with us for 23 years with no funding almost from us, and it's been an amazing collaboration. Just real quickly, you know who we are. I don't know if all of you know where we're housed, because we're in this place. Oh my gosh. We're in this place here at Culpeper, Virginia. That's where we're housed. That facility was built with the largest gift to date to the federal government of $163 million. And we're piped by 75 miles of fiber optic cable. Now, when Carla Hayden was, dismissed or fired, people were asking me, are we safe? And we have copies, 4 different locations. You don't do the work. You don't do work like this if you're not taking care of that kind of business. You don't. But the other thing I want to say is the Librarians of Congress actually shuttled the acting librarian that was sent and the acting registrar from the Copyright Office. They said that they did not work for the President of the White House. They worked for the Library of Congress. For Congress. So that has helped. So I called it the revolt of the librarians. So I want to say, we interview people who have made significant accomplishments in his or her life, and those who are associated with a movement or organization of our time that's important to the Black community. That is represented in this room, and I think of James Early, who was here, who's been in the trenches for a very, very long time. Our work stands on your shoulders. Right here, these are our different categories. We've done a little over 4,000 interviews. We have partnerships with NFL that we're doing, and the Alice Walton Foundation has just funded people in healthcare and the arts, and we also have Boeing that are helping us work in the military, and I know Will Gunn is here, and he's done a wonderful job in our military category, and none of this would have been possible without American Airlines, so we thank you from the bottom of our heart. The earliest recollection, meaning someone's memory of their family history, goes back to the 1700s. We've done interviews in 451 cities and towns. The youngest person at the time of interview was Aisha McMillan, a prima ballerina, and the oldest was Louisiana Hines, a World War II Rosie the Riveter out of Detroit. We have lots and lots of content. We believe that the intersection of these stories will emerge a new and more accurate history about the Black experience. And that's what I have. I have three wonderful people here this evening. I have George Daniels, who's a professor in media at the University of Alabama. I've got Gina Duckett, who is a professor at Morgan State University. And I've got Keith Pemberton, who's a junior at Yale University. And I am going to turn things over to them. But I want you to think about this, that our archives literally offer documentary evidence, not only of our value, but they offer documentary evidence of curriculum that is now being whitewashed. We offer color in a world that is saying color is not important. We offer hope when hope feels scarce. We offer stories of overcoming, of excellence, of possibility, of endurance. The archives are not just a vault, a dusty old vault that's sitting on a shelf. They are vibrant and where, as we said, tech meets culture. They are a mirror, a bridge, a window, and I want you to welcome our presenters to the stage. Thank you. Oh, wait. I forgot one thing. This is Dionne Warwick's. Lisa, sorry, I said no. This is Lisa Warwick. I was saying she must be related to Dionne Warwick, though Dionne Warwick did not really spell her name the way it's spelled. Okay. She's going to show you how to get a library card.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, I love that. So I'm going to be really quick here. Oh. I'm going to stop the slideshow, but just for a little bit. My name is Lisa Warwick. I am the manager of the People's Archive, which is on the 4th floor of this building. We are closed right now, but I encourage everybody to please come back and visit us sometime. And on your way out, you can see some of our materials in the exhibits. We have collections focusing on DC history as well as Black studies throughout the nation. Some of our collections include the papers of Charlene Drew Jarvis and an oral history recording with Cora Masters Berry, the former wife of Mayor Marion Barry. But we're here to talk about history makers. So let's go to the DC Public Library site. Does everybody here have a library card? Yes, a lot of people. I don't see everybody, so I'm going to show you how to get a card real quick. You can follow along with me on your phone if you want. So you're just going to click Get a Card at the very top, fill out your information, and you can see it remembered me and my fake birthday. I'm making myself a little younger today, because why not? Click Agree. It's going to ask for an address, and it only lets you choose Maryland, DC, or Virginia, but nobody's double checking, so just feel free to get yourself a card. It's going to last for 3 months and let you look at the history makers from home for free. If you're, yeah, let's clap. So it shows you your library card right away, and if you come to back to our website, you just go to Research and Learn right here at the top, and you're just going to go to H for History Maker, and scroll down. You can see we have a lot of other databases you can use too, and you're in, all for free from your home. I'm going to turn it back over to Juliana. Thank you for visiting, everybody.
Thank you, Lisa. It's really important. We don't know, how many of you knew that this was available here? Okay, because we need usage, because people are not using it like they're using it in other cities, and we want to make sure the library has, well, Tony has invested, but we want the library to continue to invest, and we want to make sure that we have the usage. The presenters who are going to be presenting, this summer we had the second week of July, faculty and students come to Chicago from all over the country, and you could have scraped all of us off the ceiling. We literally offered a one-room schoolhouse on how to use the digital archive. So I want to have you hear firsthand what they are learning and experience. Thank you, George. Come on up.
Well, good evening, everyone. I am delighted to be here at a library that I never visited, even though I lived here for 4 years as a student at Howard University. So I am thankful for the library team for inviting us tonight. I understand there's some really important papers here, and as a media historian, I definitely want to be checking those papers out. But just a little bit about myself so you can have some context for who's talking to you tonight. I have been on the faculty at the University of Alabama for 22 years. And even though I've been on the faculty for 22 years, this is the most challenging year we've had because we are in the second year of a divisive concepts law that dictates how we talk about race, how we talk about gender, how we talk about slavery. We are trying to do what is best for our students, but we also have to operate under the law. How do we do that? How do we make sure that students are able to get different points of view, that they're not being indoctrinated by their faculty members? We send them on expeditions to learn different points of view. And the best way to do that is in the History Makers Digital Archive. They get lots of stories from that archive, and we involve them in many different projects, and we tell them it's very easy to use. And I'm going to show you in just a moment. But when we have 3,000 plus voices to bring to our classes, we can teach so much more than one would find in a textbook. We can do more than just talk about a terminology. We can let a history maker give us that terminology. In fact, in some cases, we can have a history maker give us the background research on that terminology. But the thing is, even if you are not teaching, if you're just doing research, the interesting thing about the History Makers Digital Archive is it is a primary source of information, firsthand knowledge of what's happening. And that's why it's so important that I have 60 students this semester across 2 classes who are doing projects, assignments, where they are searching the digital archive. Even before I became a faculty fellow and I went to the Summer Institute, I had students doing profiles of Black journalists using the digital archive. And now those profiles don't just include the person being profiled, but another history maker talking about a subject or even that person and his or her experience. That's just in one class. In the other class, Race, Gender, Media, that's an advanced class, and at least 7 or 8 students have taken a second class where they are using the History Makers Digital Archive for an entire semester. They're picking a project, and they're bringing those projects back to present to the entire class. Not at the end of the semester, but throughout the semester. So we've been in school now. This is our 4th week in Tuscaloosa. And my students this semester are researching the connection between slavery and Black professional athletes. They're looking at diversity in the newsroom for women of color. They're researching why did America respond differently to the O.J. Simpson trial, whether they were black or white. And guess what? They're even finding connections to Eric and Lau Menendez. You heard about those two guys in the news. The students wanted to know, is there anything about Eric and Lau in the archive? Yes, search for it. So it's all about using that search. And we're going to get to that in just a moment. But you know what? When they do those projects and those assignments, they learn a lot about Washington, D.C. I know a lot about Washington, D.C. because I was a student here for 4 years in the Cathy Hughes School of Communication. But they get a chance to learn about Paul Berry's experience when he was an anchor at WJLA Channel 7. They hear about, oh my goodness, so many journalists here in the Washington, D.C. area. They also get a chance to learn about Cathy Hughes and Radio One and then becoming Television One. But they also get a chance, you mentioned earlier Charlene Drew Jarvis's papers that are here at this library. Marion Barry's papers are also here at this library. Well, what happens when you can connect those papers to the people telling the story through their own voices? Magic. And what we want to do when we're teaching them how to do research is connect multiple sources, go deeper, and make those connections, and that gives you a whole different product. But they also might discover a man by the name of Dr. H. Beecher Hicks, Jr. I know him very well because he was my pastor at Metropolitan Baptist Church for 4 years, and he has quite a story to tell also. All of that comes in the digital archive, and I might tell you, get ready, because in just a few weeks, you're going to get a chance to read the third history of the National Association of Black Journalists. Now, you might care, why do we care about that in D.C.? Well, 50 years ago, on December 12th, 1975, 44 black journalists got together and said, we're going to make it official. We're going to start a national organization of black journalists. And I believe 2 of those 44 founders are in the room. Maybe if you're one of the founders, raise your hand. All right, give them a hand. All right, founders. The story of how the organization started is right here in the digital archive. And if I go to that digital archive right now and put in National Association of Black Journalists, make sure I spell association correctly. Put the S on the end there. I get 434 stories, not just about NABJ, but WABJ. You know, Maureen Bunyan, anybody remember Maureen Bunyan? She started an organization here in Washington, D.C., even before that meeting in 1975. There also was one in Philadelphia that I believe Joe Davidson had something to do with, called the Association of Black Journalists. The Constitution for NABJ is basically a copy of the one from Philadelphia. You learn that when you search the digital archive. But you can also search by using our acronym NABJ. Now, that was 434 stories. When I put NABJ in, I get just 327, so it narrows it, but it gives you a different group of stories. And one of the key things is you don't just stay on the first page. You want to scroll down to the bottom and go over to page 6 and 7 and see what you learn in the process. And if you find an interesting clip, play that clip, because it might take you to something else about that history maker. It's so important to do that. How many of you have heard of the Quiet Storm? Oh, wow. A few people know what I'm talking about, all right? Well, when I put the Quiet Storm into the digital archive, just put Quiet Storm in, I get 60 stories about the Quiet Storm. And there are a lot of different stories. There are stories that talk to us about the show, The Quiet Storm, on radio. Does it come on in the morning? No, it comes on in the evening, all right? Well, that's actually a radio format. And I recently did a study on black radio management, all based on interviews in the digital archive, and The Quiet Storm is one of those success stories that is unique. And it started right here in Washington, D.C. And you know who can tell us about that? Well, I know him because he was the host of Evening Exchange when I was a student, and at that time it was WHMM. But Kojo Nnamdi actually was one of the managers at WHUR. Remember the Daily Drum and what time it came on? All right. Well, he has a lot of knowledge about what was going on behind the scenes, and he can tell us the full story about The Quiet Storm.
Quiet Storm is a song by Smokey Robinson, but the concept? Kathy Liggins, who essentially originated the concept. Melvin Lindsay was the guy who played the music and who liked the music. But Kathy Liggins said, around 7 o'clock in the evening, what are young men and women doing? She said, every young man that I know is trying to get some. Every young woman that I know is trying to give some up. And they don't want to have to be getting up to change the mood music all the time. They want somebody to play that mood music for them so that they could get about their business. That's how The Quiet Storm originated. It was, as it turns out, a no-brainer. You play, I used to joke with Melvin and say, you playing that black elevator music again? You play those slow love songs from 7 to midnight, it creates the romantic environment that a whole bunch of people want to be in at that time, and they don't have to be thinking about programming it themselves.
Well, see what you can learn in the digital archive? Now, that's the programming strategy, and that's what we teach in a management class. But you know what he mentioned? It actually is a song. And if you search in the digital archive, the man who wrote that song was actually interviewed by another history maker. We know her as the late Gwen Ifill, who worked at PBS NewsHour. She interviewed Smokey Robinson about that song.
I think a running theme throughout this conversation has been about the soundtrack that you've written to our lives. Confession. The soundtrack that you've written to my life is every night at 7 o'clock when my hometown station, WHUR, plays Quiet Storm as the evening introduction to the rest of the night.
Thank you.
Now, when you wrote Quiet Storm, did you understand that you were completely remaking the entire radio format?
No, I really didn't. Quiet Storm, we talked about earlier my retirement from the Miracles, and I figured at the time that I retired from the Miracles that I was never, ever, ever going to be on the outer edges of show business again. I was never going to perform again. I was never going to record or do any of that again.
Really? You didn't think of yourself as going solo. You thought of yourself as stopping.
No, stopping. I had a job. I was vice president of Motown. After about 3.5 years, I would come to my office, and I was so sad. I was so out of place. I was so not into being at that office. I missed being in show business so much. And I thought that it was hidden from the world. One day, Barry came in my office. And like I said, he's my best friend, so he knows me. He came in my office. He said, hey, man, he said, I want you to do something for me. So I know he's going to tell me some business stuff he wants me to go and do, you know, because I would go travel around sometimes and make publishing deals or whatever. I want you to do something for me. So I said, what is it? He said, I want you to get a band together. I want you to make a record. I want you to get the hell out of here. So I said, what you talking about, man? He said, no, man. He said, because maybe people don't know. He said, but you're miserable. He said, when you're miserable, I'm miserable. So I don't want to be miserable, so I want you to get out of here. So I said, okay, fine, that's what I will do. So I always considered myself as being like a quiet singer, more so than robust. So I said, okay, I'm going to write a song about being quiet. And I'm going to write something that is not normally quiet and make it quiet. So I wrote the song Quiet Storm. And
Now, how many of us really knew how that song got started? When you watch that clip, you don't just learn about the Quiet Storm, you learn about Berry Gordy and how he interacted with Smokey Robinson. You also understand that a career transition was happening when that song was being written. There's so much more when we search the digital archive. Now, that is a clip that we found by searching Quiet Storm. What if I searched based on the founder or the disc jockey or the on-air personality? Who was the DJ for the Quiet Storm? Melvin Lindsey. And when I put in Melvin Lindsey, I get just 11 stories. Now, Kojo comes up again, but who's missing from those 11? No Smokey there, all right? We get more information about the management and Melvin Lindsey's story, but you have to try the right search terms to get the full story. And that's what we challenge our students to do, is try different search terms and see what you come up with. And if you like the clip you find, as I think we like the Smokey Robinson clip, we can save that clip and come back to it in an area called My Clips at the top. These are all the ones that we are saving to share with you tonight. I want to leave you with one of those clips that comes from a former mayor of our Washington, D.C. area. We talked earlier about the papers of Charlene Drew Jarvis and Marion Barry being here at the Martin Luther King Library. But what you might not know is that Mayor Barry had something to say about the value of this archive. And I think it's a good one for us to play as we better understand why it is so very important.
Why is important? We left, it's H-I-S-T-O-R-Y. A lot of time it's his story, not history. And we've not been in the textbooks, we've not been in history, we've not been recognized properly. And we've not given our young people and old people too a sense of being. So this project will enable people to see through all the censors and the filters of the white press and see a person in terms of his total reality. And that's important that we have that both in schools and churches and anywhere else. It's important white people see this too, so that they can see the great contributions and the reality. Because most white people and black people only know those of us who leadership through the newspapers. They have no idea what we really do or how we are or what we think. This project does that.
And so that's really a good way to remind us all of the value of the history makers. It's an information source for everyone, and especially those who don't have this lived experience. To continue this conversation, I want to turn it over to my colleague from Morgan State, Dr. Jana Duckett. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. Good evening, history makers and new friends. I bring you greetings from Morgan State University, located in the heart of Baltimore, Maryland, a campus of over 176 acres and over 11,000 students teeming through 12 vibrant schools. I serve as faculty in the School of Global Journalism and Communication, where we have the distinction of having 5 history makers who serve currently or who have served on our faculty. First, in the upper left-hand corner, we have NABJ founding member and our school's founding dean, Dwayne Wickham. Next to him, we have award-winning author and media historian Wayne Dawkins, followed by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist E.R. Shipp. In the lower left-hand corner, we have prolific writer and journalist Karen DeWitt. And finally, we have broadcast journalist Randall Pinkston, who has too many Emmys to count and who I also understand worked as an oral history interviewer for the archive. So I always love starting by talking about the history makers who have directly impacted my life, who I'm personally connected to. and because it shows that this archive is intricately connected to the tapestry of our lives. And that's really my goal today, to share with you the ways in which the archive has connected, again, to my life, both personally and professionally, and hopefully to inspire you to find your own story in the archive. So I'll start by telling a little story. On September 5th, 1959, in Picayune, Mississippi, my grandmother, Dolores Gordon, and 6 of her siblings poured into a black 1950s Chevy Impala and embarked on a 1,700-mile cross-country journey to Las Vegas, Nevada. My grandmother was 16 years old at the time and had never known a world outside of the inland town on the Gulf Coast. So when I decided to explore my story in the archive, I decided to begin by searching a place we called home, Las Vegas. Immediately, I saw her mentor, history maker Dr. William H. Bob Bailey, on the first page and several pages within the search. He is known as the first African-American television personality in Nevada. And as a young girl, I remember hearing my grandmother talk about their relationship. She shared that history maker Bailey started an initiative which identified black high school students and helped to catapult careers for them in television by teaching them how to direct, produce, and anchor newscasts. So as I navigated through the History Makers archive, I landed on a clip where he talked about and described how he came to live in Las Vegas. And in the clip, History Maker Bailey alludes to the racial barriers that he faced when breaking into the television industry and where he was at the top of his class in New York City at the radio and television broadcast institution there. And this was the impetus of moving him from New York to Las Vegas. Because in Las Vegas, something new was happening. New hope, new energy. But as the first integrated hotel, interracial hotel in the United States, the Moulin Rouge, was underway. And history maker Bailey was asked to produce a show there. And so after searching the Moulin Rouge, I learned from history maker Bailey and other history makers within the archive that though the Moulin Rouge was widely successful, it was kind of the epicenter of Black life, Black entertainment, and Black culture in the mid-1950s in Las Vegas. And though it was widely successful, after being open only 5 months, it closed with standing room only. After the Moulin Rouge closed, as the saying goes, when one door closes, another one opens. History maker Bailey was approached with an opportunity to produce direct a live show, The Talk of the Town, on Channel 8 KLS TV, the same show my grandmother would eventually be on as an anchor woman. History maker Bailey was determined to create pathways and share his platform with others, not barriers, ones that he had experienced early on in his career. He was determined to help advance Black students who aspire to have a career in television and media, or even just learn about it. He said in one clip, "I was going to stay in Las Vegas and make a contribution," and that he did. And my grandmother benefited from his resilience, and so did I. I like to think that that's why I pursued a degree in journalism and media studies and currently teach in the field now at an HBCU. So that's just one personal story. And you can find your story in there too. You can start by searching terms related to you or your family, your hometown, a landmark, and really begin to uncover your unique constellation story in the digital archive. So switching gears a bit, I'd also like to share how this is impacting my life professionally. In my role as a professor, I'm guiding digital media students in an experimental project that connects the past and the present through the life of history maker Vernon Jarrett, a pioneering journalist, civil rights activist, founder of NABJ and NAACP's AXO Youth Group. Student teams are creating original digital projects such as podcasts, mini documentaries, and interactive exhibits that explore Jarrett's legacy and brings his story to life in various digital contexts. These projects also align with key learning objectives in our digital media course, such as technical media production skills, narrative construction, and historical research. But most importantly, it asks students to critically think about African American media history and their place in it. And the History Makers Digital Archive is at the heart of our research project. Students are able to have conversations with history maker Vernon Jarrett. They are able to hear his voice. And in this clip that I want to share with you, history maker Vernon Jarrett shares the impact of media in shaping Black culture and Black community with a specific lens on the impact of the Black press.
Radio has been the most predominant influence, given the different times in Black community.
I can cut you off right now. The most predominant media influence on Black people was the Black newspapers. We can't give them enough credit. They were our internet. They were our cement that helped keep us together, the bricks. Here we are in many ways motionless. We were bricks, but they were the cement that kept us unified. They were the medium for us knowing that Black people were going to college and graduating. You see their pictures in the paper. And don't get a PhD degree or a master's degree and you're in the Chicago Defender? Outstanding. Somebody got an appointment. They used to, any appointment that a Black person got, they called it a post. So-and-so elevated to high governmental post. And you'd be up there, you might not be making over $5,000 or $10,000 a year, but you're being sworn in and you got your wife and your children there. Anything suggesting an upward movement, you read about it in the Black newspaper.
So when students hear him talk about the role of newspapers and in other clips, the impact of radio and television in shaping Black community and cohesion and Black consciousness, they begin to understand not just history, but the true weight of the role that they carry as future storytellers, journalists, and documentarians. And they learn about the giants whose shoulders they are standing on. They learn and benefit from the lived experiences of those who have gone before them in a piercingly authentic way. And in another clip, my final clip, Jarrett recalls a memory where his father, who is an elementary school principal at a Black school in their town, is asking him to take a gift, to get on his bike and take a gift to Mr. Tatum, a white superintendent. And in this memory, you begin to see the origin story of the fire that stirred him throughout his career in advancing civil rights and uplifting Black life and justice for humanity.
He never gives us anything. And he said, don't ask any questions, just take this gift over to Mr. Tatum. So I reluctantly put the basket up in front of my bike, and I'm getting ready to pedal off. And my dad called me back. He knew I was unhappy about this. And he said, go to the back door. Even if you hear or see them in the front yard or wherever they are, go to the back door. Don't go running around out there with this basket. You ring the bell and you knock on the door, and I have a little note in here where it's from. And if they don't come, just leave it there in the screen door. And so I said, okay. And I start to pedal off again. Then he called me back again. He says, all of your life down here, son, you are going to have to go to the back door. He said, but one thing I want you to promise me right now, that you will never get used to it. When I look back on that, it chokes me up. He says, I don't want you ever getting used to going to the back door. So you go and take it over there and drop it down, and if you leave mad or angry, you make me happy. And this has been our history. This is why I think so many of your pretty tough and durable leaders have come out of the South. We never got used to it.
Right.
This clip, yes. This clip is so powerful in how it fiercely resists oppression and certainly refuses to internalize it. We live in a time when media trust is fractured, Black history is under attack, and Black communities remain underrepresented in newsrooms and media spheres across the globe. Engaging our students with a figure like history maker Jared is not just about history, it's about inspiring also their identity and empowering them to boldly take up space and bring their talents to the forefront. It's about helping students see themselves as part of a larger tradition, one rooted in storytelling, excellence, and a pervading spirit of never getting used to injustice or inequity. So thank you to the history makers. Thank you, Dr. Richardson, for preserving these valuable voices and for giving us access to them to enhance learning experiences for the next generation. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. How are we doing? Good evening. Thank you for joining us here tonight on this momentous occasion as we launch the DC Public Library. My name is Keith Grant Pemberton II. I'm currently a junior at Yale University. I have the honor to be serving as a 2025 to 26 student ambassador for the History Makers Digital Archive. So a little bit more about myself. As I said, I'm currently a junior at Yale University. I'm majoring in history with certificates in Arabic and energy studies. And on campus, I am involved with the Yale NAACP. I'm also involved with Branford College Council and Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, currently serving as the second vice district representative for the fraternity. And on campus, I've had the tremendous honor of not only being involved with grassroots activism, but also through my history training, really seeing gaps in the current historical archives. And at Yale University, my freshman year, went into Beinecke Archives, and that holds those records from those like Henry Kissinger, William Buckley, but one record that really took my interest was Langston Hughes. And my freshman year, I combed through his correspondence from his time at Lincoln University to his time abroad, and I was like, there are so many African-American individuals throughout the 20th century whose narratives, whose lives have not had the opportunity to be put into these institutions, these ivory towers, and that really extended towards my interest to the initiative that Ms. Richardson is leading right now in collecting these experiences of the 20th century and putting them toward the mainframe for individuals like myself. I was born in 2005, so a lot of these individuals were either have passed away or currently in the room with us today, and really excited in engaging with them in a digital format. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it's not sliding? Bear with me, please. There we go, there we go. Okay, yes, there we go. Clap with me now, yes. And here's my role as a campus liaison, so expanding awareness at Yale University, not only in Yale College, but also the Yale School of Management, Yale Law School, so all broader students within the university system can engage with the History Makers Digital Archive. Now, more on the campus climate, as I was talking about with Beinecke Library, that being more of a siloed archive, with the Gutenberg Bible currently in that system, but really want to explore past that into the 20th century African American history, which most of my studies at Yale focus on right now, especially with black students. A lot of them currently the only black students in their class, only black students maybe in their extracurriculars, seeing trailblazers on which they can stand on their shoulders, and every day they walk, seeing themselves as leaders. And next, I want to talk about my fascination with the archive, pointing towards a specific clip with the Reverend Al Sharpton. And you can see he a little bit younger in this clip than he does today. Yes. And this was also 2002, so before I was born, so really my interest, yeah, just want to expand on that. But in the NAACP at Yale, I really point toward this as a kind of starting point for my grassroots activism, seeing the effort that he had in founding the National Action Network in 1991.
What do you want your legacy to be?
I want to be part of a continuous generational evolution towards social justice and human rights. We sing the song in church, will the chain be unbroken? I want, when they go from the King era to the Jackson era to my generation, they could say, I helped keep the chain from being unbroken. That no matter how big the foe, how strong the adversary, how difficult the fight, that I was one of those that was in the army that fought. And even if we died on the battlefield, we did not ever fear coming out to fight.
Now, this is one of the most powerful, yes, please, thank you. Now, this is one of the most powerful clips I found in the archive, and as we lead on campus as black leaders, we really want to go back into this before our meetings and see how did the Reverend Al Sharpton think about his leadership, his advocacy during the Civil Rights Movement, and how can we think about that going forward? This leads directly into my student ambassador awareness campaigns on campus right now. So collaborating with first-year seminar students, so 18, 19-year-olds, wanting them to really gain that archival training, but not only on text, but also within oral histories, seeing that the value that oral histories have within our community, but also within formal academic writing. Next, partnering with academic departments such as African American Studies and the History Department at Yale, so we can integrate oral histories into their syllabi, highlighting black intellectual traditions. Right now, I'm taking a class focused on Pan-Africanism and anti-colonial modernity, reading Claude McKay right now and seeing how we can integrate the History Maker digital archive into our final papers. Next, building bridges with local NPHC chapters and the NAACP, seeing how we could use advocacy roundtables, grassroots strategies from the past, from the archival materials. And lastly, deepening ties with the Afro-American Cultural Center at Yale, the first black house in the Ivy League, curating themed exhibits, leading training sessions, and amplifying student voices through the archive. In spring 2026, I want to take this one step further. Again, using the university system, but having a multimodal projects with essays and arts, but also a reflective event with the Yale Law School, knowing the impact of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and using archival clips to explore that legacy and how it has transformed with the end of affirmative action and how we can go forward within legal advocacy. And next, facilitating a sit-down conversation with Yale presidents, focusing on Yale's complex history with having black students and the now decreasing number of black students at Yale today. And lastly, leading a signature program as we reflect on 250 years of American history, 1776 to 2026, bridging historical narratives from the 20th century into contemporary voices using archive-driven panels. And another big role that I have as a student ambassador is blog posts and bridging that past to the present. So for example, when it was back to school in mid-August, I wrote an article entitled Back to School, Back to Struggle, focusing on how in the Jim Crow South, education was not always equal, especially coming from North Carolina, reflecting on Dudley High School in Greensboro. Also, Between Two Fascisms, Black America, White Supremacy, and Authoritarian Challenges. When Black soldiers returned home from World War II, they were still treated at a subhuman status, and how that really was embedded in the surveillance of Black communities. And where we returned Black Summers on Martha's Vineyard, of which the history makers had an exhibit this past August. And my first blog post was actually a pretty interesting topic: chocolate roots, family food, and the ties that bind. So focused on how Black families entered into the restaurant industry. And although I've really reflected on my experience as a student ambassador at Yale, this archive applies to all of us, including for those in the room who are history makers, but also for those in my generation. I think to my brother right now, his name is Kyle, he's a rising senior, and he's looking at a host of different colleges, and Morehouse specifically caught his eye. And I was like, well, if you want to know more about the Morehouse experience, let's talk to those who lived through it. And we found actually a former president and student of Morehouse, President Mason, really focusing on his experience in chapel, and that being one of the most transformational experiences, being a Morehouse man.
There was Chapel, right? He was known for Chapel, right?
Every day as a freshman. Every day from 9 to 9:30.
And talk about Chapel and the significance of that. Did it have significance?
Oh, yes. It was required for freshmen, as I said, every day, and then after that, once a week. But we went, and he spoke a great deal, but Dean Brazil, who doesn't get as much credit as he should for shaping and Morehouse, because he was Benjamin May's academic dean, and he really ran a lot of the academic programs and was the person who, you know, sort of set the rules and standards of behavior inside and outside of the classroom. And Dean Brazil would speak a great deal in chapel. And we'd have people came in from the outside, you know, white and black, Indian, African. President Tubman came, as I recall. And it was a way of, again, allowing us to be exposed to individuals of national, international stature and renown, and to hear messages about life and achievement from them. So it was very important. It still is. We call it Crown Forum now, and you only have to go to so many during your Morehouse experience. But we're probably the only school in the country that requires a college-wide gathering for all students, because it seems it's very important to reinforce the messages about what it means to be a Morehouse man outside of the classroom.
Now, I won't mention again how old this clip is, but the fact is, my brother and I would never have been able to hear about this experience, and even Dean Brazil, if it wasn't for the History Maker Digital Archive highlighting what chapel was like growing up at Morehouse as a young man all those years ago, and how it changed in the present. And now, as my brother writes his college essays, right now he's actually incorporating this History Makers clip into how he writes his essay right now, and that wouldn't have been possible. And I just wanted to thank all the history makers in the room today for your contributions to both my generation and future generations, because I wouldn't be here without you trailblazing the way.
I want to thank our presenters. Really. Look at this. We have, think about the digital archive as like a golden Bible. As Black people or any people that have been challenged, everything that we think, every obstacle that we think is in front of us, there's an answer there. And I say that, and I look at Sylvia there, because we're going to do work together, right? Asala and the Historymakers got to come together in partnership. But the fact of the matter is that when people ask me now, am I worried? And I would say that the first part of this year, it was like having a bullseye on my back. But I made the decision we're going to thrive. We're going, and then, so I'm asking who in this audience is going to get on our train, because we got a lot of work together to do. But this is just the beginning, what you see here. And there are all kinds of stories and lessons and uses of the digital archive that we have yet to see and to experience. And so I'm just asking you to get on our train. I want to thank the DC Public Library for making this resource. Let's take it over. Let's take over for Black History Month and every month. Thank you very much. And just we'll take a picture in front of the Martin Luther King, in front of the exhibit downstairs, in front of the mural. Okay, thank you very, very much.